Hey guys, welcome to tonight's training with Achievers Coaching System. This is an honor to bring this training to everybody tonight. We're going to be covering something that I've really taken my time with, and this is something that's really close, kind of hits home to me. We're going to be talking about how to have success in junior golf, okay? And we're going to be talking about things that are going to actually help work in your life that is going to build a long-term successful junior golf career, one that's going to lead to like a big picture, a successful collegiate career. And so, building achievers, I've been doing a lot of traveling. I've been going to a lot of you guys' events, probably about 40 events per year over the past couple years. I went to the Scott Robertson earlier this year. This is one of the most prestigious events that y'all can hope to play in junior golf. Past players in this event include Patrick Reed, Webb Simpson, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, and Drew Weaver. I had a player out in this field. His name's Chris. He did very well in this tournament. He finished in a tie for second. And I'm very proud of the progress that I've seen Chris make in the short period of time that we've worked together. Earlier this year, I was down at the Palmetto. Now this is not the amateur event, okay? This is the one where the high school teams get to go to it, and it's a high school event as a team. So it's a 2-day event that's held in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, True Blue and Caledonia golf courses. It's a lot of fun at this one, right? I mean, you don't even feel like you're really at a golf tournament. You're at the beach. It's the first decent weather tournament of the month or of the year. Just so y'all know, the short game facility at Caledonia, like if I die soon, please bury me there. You've got 8 greens to hit to. There's shots from 10 yards out to 140 yards. You can hit shots anywhere in there. You got tee boxes to hit from. The condition of this place looks like it belongs at the Masters down at Augusta. I could spend all day out there. There's Spanish moss that hangs from the branches of the live oaks that are on this golf course. And so it's out there on the short game facility. You've got the Intercoastal Waterway that's like 150 yards away. Caledonia, not only is it a country club, but it's also a fishing club. So while you're out there practicing, getting ready for this tournament, you've got guys on sailboats and fishing boats that are out there watching you hit these shots. This is one of the rewards I want y'all to understand that you can get in your journey of becoming a top performer. Think about this: the better that you play in golf, the better venues you're going to get to play, and that only adds to the dream of what you guys are chasing, right? So it was a lot of fun going down there. I saw some pretty cool stuff down there. Hey, what's the funniest thing that you've ever seen in golf? Okay, I saw this sophomore kid in high school. He was at this event. This was during the tournament. He walked up to his ball. He ran over to his bag. He got his alignment stick. I was like, this is odd, but okay. And then he ran back to his ball. He started whacking an alligator with his alignment stick so he could get up to his golf ball and play it. It wasn't a big alligator, but it was still an alligator nonetheless, and just something that I'd never seen on a golf course. All of this stuff went down at the Palmetto. So I was driving to this tournament, and I was on the way down there, and I was driving through somewhere, South Carolina. And that very well could have been the name of the town that I was in, somewhere, South Carolina. And I stopped in at this old country gas station. I got out and I got gas. I got me a Riptide Rush Gatorade. They still had these little zebra cakes. You ever seen those? They were like still a quarter. They're like $1.50 now where you go, but they were 25 cents when I was in high school. So I really liked this place. I got out got out to where my car was, and I looked over and I saw this barn. And there was this older guy that was coming out of the barn. He had on blue jeans, this old dusty, just worn out shirt, and a cowboy hat. And I looked over at him. I was like, "Hey, what's going on, cowboy?" And he looked back at me. He said, "Making butter." And he said it like it's got 2 D's in it, making butter. And so this guy is legit country. And I saw that he was carrying these 2 milk pails where he had just come out of the barn. There were dairy cows in there. When I saw this, it reminded me of a training session that I was a part of about 12 years ago. Several of you guys who are listening to this tonight, you have heard my story of how the trajectory of my life, how it was radically changed for the better when I was just 19 years old. Somehow, by the grace of God, I met these wealthy entrepreneurs who were awesome. They were incredible people, and they were like iconically good at what they did. They were like the Avengers of modern day business in America. Everything they did, people would marvel at it in the business world of things they did in this country. So there would be meetings at 8 o'clock at night. We would stick around for trainings that got started at 10 o'clock at night. We would go catch up for food and just talk about our futures, talk about each other's businesses, talk about the people we were leading, and we would just have talks from midnight till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was at one of these meetings where I heard the story of two frogs who left the safety of their swamp one day, and they ventured into a nearby farm ready to explore. Well, soon they found themselves in a dairy where they found a large milk pail. Well, hopping into the pail, they found that it was half filled with fresh cream. So these two little guys were thrilled. They had never tasted anything so delicious in the swamp where they grew up, right? And so they got their bellies full. Eventually, it was time for them to leave and go back to the swamp. But that's when they realized they were in trouble. So they had no trouble hopping into the pail, but now how are they going to get out? Because the inside of the cell was too slippery for them to climb. And because they couldn't reach the bottom of the pail, there was nothing for them to step onto for traction, so hopping to safety was out of the question too. They were trapped. And frantically, they began thrashing their feet as they scrabbled for a foothold on the slippery, elusive curve of the pail's sides. And finally, one of the frogs cried out. He said, "It's no use, brother." See, it was these two brother frogs that were swimming around together. That's how they were doing this. It was two brother frogs from the swamp. He said, "We're doomed." And he said it in plain English. Like, this is a true story. Like, this actually happened, right? Right. And so, the older frog, he goes like this. He says, "No, man, listen. We cannot give up. When we were just tadpoles, we dreamed of the day that we were going to emerge out of the water and hop around on dry land. So swim on, brother. We're going to pray for a miracle." But the other frog was full of doubt. And he looked down sadly and he said, "Nah, there are no miracles in the life of a frog." And he croaked and he said, "Farewell, brother." And then he sank slowly out of sight. The older frog was hurt from his brother's decision, but he refused to give up. He continued paddling in the same tiny circle over and over again, hoping for a miracle to happen. An hour later, he was still paddling just in this circle over and over again. He was still paddling in this same tiny little circle. 2 hours later, now he no longer even knew why he was still fighting to survive. His brother's dying words were beginning to haunt him as fatigue started to set in, and he started thinking, was my brother right? Are there no miracles in the life of a frog? And so finally he stopped paddling and he let go, ready to face the same fate that his brother faced. Yet to his surprise, unlike his brother, the second frog, the older frog, did not sink. In fact, he stayed right where he was as if he was suspended in midair. And then he stretched out his foot tentatively and he felt it touch something solid beneath the surface of the cream. And as he kept touching something solid, he scrambled up on top of the big lump of butter that he had just churned out of the cream from paddling over and over again. And then he hopped out of the pail and he took off to the swamp. I saw the cowboy with the buckets in the barn in somewhere South Carolina, and it reminded me of this story that was told to me by multi-millionaire entrepreneurs who had overcome all odds in their business, all odds in their lives. And this story, you know what it did? It reminded me of all of you guys. When I think back to trainings that I received in business, it reminds me of what I see here in junior golf in North Carolina right now. It reminds me of the fears and the doubts that I had starting off trying to succeed for the first time in my life, and about how long it seemed for real success to actually happen, whether it was in business or later in my golf career. And it reminded me of the doubt that I faced, as there were times where I felt like that lonely little frog sometimes, swimming in circles after everybody else around me had quit, churning my feet over and over again, only to end up out of breath and stuck in a slippery situation. Stuck in between a dream that looks like it's never going to happen for me and the desire to keep pressing on even though I was going nowhere. There are times in any career where you reach a point where you've already come a long ways in your journey. How many of y'all here tonight, you can say that you can say, hey, you know what, I might not be a pro yet, I might not be in college golf yet, but I have come a good bit of ways. Like, you're not a beginner anymore, right? And the progress that you're used to making, it starts to slow down sometimes. This happens in any career as you start to succeed at it. Tonight we're going to cover how this happens in junior golf, and that the things it takes to truly succeed and get out of that are oftentimes overlooked and even untrusted. And you might say, untrusted? Why would anybody not trust the things it takes to become successful? Well, just like the frog in the bucket that lost trust in the process and he gave up hope, it's easy to give up on things that may take a while before you see them change in your junior golf career, especially at an age that you're at, if this is the first time you're finding success in life. The greatest things in life, they all work like this, and you're going to learn how these things can work in your junior career starting tonight. The title of tonight's training is called Trust the Process, Not the Scores. Trust the process, not the scores. We live in a culture here in America where it's all about the here and the now, right now, baby. Hey, if it feels good, do it. Instant gratification mentality. Gaming manufacturers are trying to figure out how to make their games ridiculously awesome and a little bit easier to win at. I mean, if you play like 2K, COD, Fortnite, you can see that they're doing a pretty good job with games like Fortnite. Do we have any gamers in here tonight? You know what I'm talking about. And so why does Epic Games, why do these gaming manufacturers want to make their video games like this? Here's why. So you'll play them more. Hey, what's their main objective? What's a gaming manufacturer's main objective? Is their main thought process, is it we're going to do something what's best for young people's lives? Or is their main objective, how many of these games can we sell? Might be that second one, right? Recording artists like my man Post Malone, he produces record-setting albums that go triple platinum, and artists reach the top of charts with songs like Psycho, with Candy Paint, and they make you feel good. Why do they make songs that make you feel good? Because they want to sell them, right? And here's the tip, guys. Gaming manufacturers, Hollywood, the worldly things, they don't care so much about the negative effects that come along with buying their product, with playing their games. They don't care if you're playing their games 15 to 20. They want you playing games 15 to 20 hours a week, but they don't care about the negative effects that may come with that, right? They care about one thing, selling their product. And don't get me wrong, Fortnite is awesome, okay? You get dropped out of the flying school bus, you fly down to earth, I get it. You bust up wood with your little axe. You get all armed up and it's on, man. You shoot up 99 other players in a span of 21 minutes. And after you shoot out 99 other players, however you do it, you are #1 victory royale. You have succeeded at something in about 20 minutes. American culture can be a lot of fun, but it's conditioning us and teaching us things that are simply not true about how success actually works. If you're a teenager here tonight, guys, you're getting bombarded by this stuff. All of you guys at your age, you're getting hit by the news, by television, by YouTube, by the gaming industry, by idiotic videos that fill up your Snapchat and Instagram feed that are absolute complete wastes of time, by the way. And everything out there in the world is fighting for a piece of your mind. You know that. And the general objective the world is giving you is this. If it feels good, do it. If it's cool, that's what's most important. If it's hard, you might not want to do that. And if it takes too long, stop doing it and do something that doesn't take too long. Allow other people to take care of you. That's a good one. And then, oh, by the way, if you don't succeed, go ahead and blame that on others. If it's hard, if it's slow, if it's boring, don't do it. But to become a true top performer in golf, there are certain things that you must learn and master. And the process of mastery is going to sound a lot opposite of what the world is telling you about success. And if all you ever do in your spare time, guys, is if you spend these times influencing your mind with this crap day in and day out, that's how a mindset is developed. Achievers is all about pouring good things in, about pouring truths and success principles into the lives of young players that have big goals and dreams in your golf career. And so there are several processes we could get into and talk about tonight. I heard a story of a head coach of a very sought-after team here in North Carolina, very sought-after team, D1 team. And it's where the head coach, he had it down to about 5 or 6 players he was interested in to fill one spot on his team for the upcoming year. And he heard a player who wasn't playing too well in a round. This player was talking to his caddy. He said something to one of his best friends who was on his bag, and this coach heard this. But the player said this to his caddy. He said, "I'm not happy with the score, but I stuck to my process, and I'm happy with that." He was talking to his caddy, one of his best friends, right? Didn't even know the coach was still watching and listening. The coach was on the way to watch some of the other players he was interested in. But when the coach heard the junior player say that, you know what he did? Here's what he did. The coach turns around. He walks straight up to that player's parents, and he says, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, congratulations. Your son just earned a spot on my team." Why did that player earn a spot on the #1 college team of his dreams, the #1 place he wanted to play? Why did he earn a spot on that team? Was it because of the score they shot? No, that was one of the worst rounds he'd played in like 3 months, okay? It was because of his mentality. It's a powerful thing to have the right process and mindset. There are several processes we can get into, guys. There's the pre-shot routine. That's a process. Reading your putt from all angles, 360 degrees, stepping up and firing is a process. You have weekly practice sessions and weekly practice goals. If you've been around any Achievers training, you have weekly practice goals. And those are all their own processes. But what you want to do is you want to learn to look at your career in golf as a big picture. And watch this. Looking at player development and personal growth and building a junior career as a process. So how does a typical year look like for a rising star in junior golf in our state? Let's get into this process of building a career, okay? I like to think that your golf year starts in the off season. In the cold of the winter, man, hey, because that's when you can make up a whole lot of ground on players who are currently better than you are. In gray months, dark months. You know how it gets dark at like 5:45 in December, but what's the future top performer doing? He's getting his swings in, man. And you know that you've only got 2 good hours of solid practice after school, and however you can, you're figuring out how to make the most of your schedule, how to get practice time in even after it gets dark outside. Whether that's setting up a net in a garage or hitting at an indoor hitting bay after it gets dark, a rising star knows that the extra time that you put in the off season is something that most other players are going to be saying something like this: I'll fire it up when I've got 3 to 4 hours of daylight. That way it's not too cold either. No, a rising star knows that you can make up ground on players who are currently better than you are in the cold, gray months of the winter. And then the springtime gets here. What's going on in the springtime in North Carolina? High school golf, baby. High school matches in the race for state championship rings. And then outside your high school matches, you've got some of the first decent weather tournaments of the year. Your ball striking is a little bit crispier than what you were expecting because of the work you just put in the off season. And you can notice that you're a much better player than you were, last year. You played in a lot of tournaments last year. You got in some miles on the road with friends and with mom and dad. And now you're putting your tournament schedule together for this year, and you're getting pretty excited about it because you're playing in some of the same tournaments, but you know that you're not the same player as you were last year. Now you've gotten bigger. You've gotten longer off the tee. You've worked harder this offseason than you ever have, and you're staying steady in the spring season, building up momentum for your entire year. And you know what? It's late springtime now, and you're working on your game 4 to 5 days a week. Some of you guys are out there working on your game 5 and 6 days a week at this part during the year on a consistent basis. And you've got a full summer schedule coming up, and it is on, man. It is prime season coming up. This is what you waited all winter and all spring for. And it's finally time for that first big tournament coming up, okay? So now high school golf is coming to an end. Maybe you didn't win states this year, but you still used your high school season as a platform to keep this momentum going early in your year. And you know there are some exemptions into larger tournaments that you're really trying to get into, so you want to knock it out of the park at this first tournament. So that first tournament comes up, and you shoot a couple over the first day, and you shoot 1 under par the second day. It gives you tied for 4th, which means that you just made top 5. So now you're playing in that next big tournament coming up, the one that you've never qualified for, okay? And so you really want to play well in this thing, so you stripe in and you practice hard before this tournament. I mean, you've got about 3 solid weeks to prepare for it. Maybe you're in here tonight and you're still in the recruiting process. Maybe you haven't committed anywhere yet, and you've got some schools where you're talking to coaches. You want to show these coaches that you can play this game at an elite level in this tournament. So this big tournament comes up, and it's everything you've been working for is here. This is the day of the big one. If you're here in North Carolina, we're talking about CGA majors like the NSU Junior Boys, the Dogwood. Maybe it's the AJGA Wyndham Invitational where you can build up a few more stars with AJGA. Maybe it's an independent tournament like the Scott Robertson or the Bobby Chapman. Maybe the North-South Junior. It's one of these are the types of tournaments that y'all want to get into to really move your junior career forward. And so it's one of these tournaments comes up, and you've been playing well, so you definitely hope to shoot, around even par, if not well under, to win the thing. And you shoot 77 the first day, 81 the second day. And you see all this hard work that you've been doing, and all this momentum that you've been building come to a screeching halt in about 2 rounds. And all the expectations you have for this tournament, they get blown up in your face. And you're left there thinking, man, what just happened? Like, I was playing pretty well coming into this thing. I was shooting lower and lower scores, and like, how? Like, I've been doing everything I was supposed to do. My last few lessons, my instructor said that my swing looked as good as he's ever seen it. I know bad scores can happen, but the timing of this was awful. The coach that I'm interested in playing for his team, he was out there watching me play, and all he did was watch me make an idiot of myself, basically, for the few short holes that he followed me. Kind of not what I was expecting. Let me ask y'all something. Have you ever been here before? This one hurt a little bit because it's not like you played bad in a smaller tournament with nothing on the line. This was a genuine opportunity to go and make a name for yourself, and you just didn't do it. But you don't stop working on your game. Here's what happens. The intensity that you had, the belief that you had, the excitement falters after this tournament. All the little extras you were doing to succeed, that comes down a little bit, and you don't quite have some of that it factor in your practice after that. But you don't quit. You move on for this tournament because, hey, look, next big tournament's coming up in a couple weeks, right? And you know what? College coach is going to be there. And here's something that's cool. Your best friends are going to be there, the ones that didn't qualify for that last big tournament. And here's what's really cool. This is going to be at a course that you know like the back of your hand. I mean, this place might as well be your second home course. You had one of your lowest scores ever in your career on this course in this same tournament last year. So you know what? You're pumped up. You get ready for this thing. And it's time for this tournament. And it's back to shooting good scores, or so you hope. And you shoot 78 the first day, 82 the second day on an easier course than what you just played on the tournament before. And for the second tournament in a row, you don't play nearly as well as you'd hope to play. Does anybody in here know what I'm talking about? What are some of the things that players are thinking about in their career at this point? It's easy to find out what players are thinking. You just have to listen to what they're saying. Man, I don't even know why I came to play golf today. I've done all this work over the past 6 months for nothing. I've done so much since last year, and I was a better player last year. I shot better scores in this same tournament last year than I did this year. I'm not getting any better at golf. I'm getting worse. My swing coach said that my swing looks as good as he's ever seen it, so that means I should be shooting better scores, the best scores I've ever shot. No, it doesn't, by the way. That's not how that works. And so this doesn't make any sense. And now all of you guys here tonight, all of y'all are playing reasonably close to one another. So maybe these scores are bad for you, maybe they're not, but they're certainly not what you're working hard for, right? And then here's what happens. Here's the next stage of this. The college coaches that you've been staying in touch with, that have been showing you attention, they say something like this on the phone. Well, so-and-so, we really like you, but we're moving on to other players that we're interested in. Well, what does that mean? It means you're not going to be playing for that college. How do you think that feels to a 16, 17-year-old that it's your dream to do something like that that's never been hit with that level of disappointment? I interviewed over 40 D1 scholarship players, like our nation's greatest players right now, over the past year and a half, 2 years. And all these players I interviewed, this is one of the biggest struggles that they all said that they faced in their junior career. So I asked all these players, all 40 of them, this same question. I wanted to see what their response was. I said, was there ever a time in your career where you got rocked hard, where it almost took you out of your game for a while? Where it took the wind out of your sails? Maybe even actually might have thought about quitting. Some strong adversity. Guys, out of the 40 D1 scholarship players that I interviewed, here's the number one response I got from them. They said it was a time when they were playing really good golf, and then they hit a rough patch in their game, and then the attention from the college coaches vanished, and they could not get back on their game no matter how hard they tried. Maybe you're listening to this tonight, and you're not quite there yet with talking to 3 to 4 college coaches all at once, and then they stop following you, okay? Maybe you're not quite there yet, but here's the beauty of the mental game. You're learning and preparing for that moment right now before it comes in the future. Hey, maybe you've already made it through the recruiting process. You're here and you've already found the college team you're playing for. That's great. Tonight is not a college recruiting training session. This is a mental game and mentorship training. And wherever you are in all this in junior golf, here's the bottom line. You want to succeed. And if you want to succeed, especially at this age, you must have the right response to adversity when it comes your way. And so then you start going on the second part of your summer schedule. And you play in some tournaments, and yeah, you see your scores get back down a little bit lower, but they never got as low as you had hoped. You never made the progress that you really hoped. And then you check the NC Junior Boys rankings or the Junior Golf Scoreboard, And you want to see your name race up to the top of the rankings, right? But with the recent not so good play, you see yourself sliding back down in the rankings and back to where you were 6 months to even a year ago. And you're like, man, what is going on, man? And here we go again. I can't get out of this. I don't even know why I'm trying to win anymore. This is happening at the worst time possible. I mean, I don't have that much time left in my junior career. I'm probably not even going to get to play golf at the college I want to play at. This has been a waste. And you know what you feel? The same thing that the frog in the bucket felt, doubt. Swimming around and around, hoping for a miracle to happen, working on your game a lot, trying to bust out that 66, trying to bust out that 68 in a tournament, getting a little bit tiny better, but not as much as you hope for, and you're hoping for a miracle that's starting to look like it's never going to happen. If you want to be a successful junior player, and then you want to be a successful collegiate player, I'm talking about a really successful college player, and a future All-American, one of the top college players in our country. Guys, here's the perspective that you want to learn early on in this journey. That your golf career is not one unobstructed movement of forward progress. It's a collection of different times and different seasons. And it's going to be filled with mountaintops and valleys, periods of drought, periods of rain. There will be times of brokenness where you're doing the work, and you're getting nothing out of it. And then there will be times of absolute joy and total fulfillment. And here's the deal, guys. God schedules every single season in your life and even in your golf game, but He does not post that schedule for you to see it. He wants to know that you have some faith. Let me ask you something. Is it harder or is it easier to be fired up about your game in this part of your career? When Webb Simpson was interviewed the weekend of the Players, when he dominated at the Players, 2018 Players, he was interviewed on a Saturday night. He was rolling on the mental game, for those of y'all that have seen this interview. By the way, if you've never played in the Webb Simpson Challenge, you're a junior here tonight, you've never played in that, you're completely missing out. He talks about this stuff all weekend long. How often do you get to hear one-on-one from one of the world's greatest 20 players of how to be successful in this? You've got to, please go to that tournament. But at the Players, here's what he said. He said, and I want to share it with you guys tonight. He said this. He said, it's easy to work hard on your game when you're playing well. Man, it's easy to put in the extras when you're seeing unreal results and you're playing. There's nothing like it. When you're out there and you're hitting the center of the club face, your swing feels good. You hit a flush rock at 6-iron. It starts off right where you want it to. It turns exactly how much you want it to turn. It lands and rolls out pin high. You're pin high most of the time all day. You can't miss in your short game. And then you're shooting 68, 67. You're shooting 66. You're shooting 65s in tournaments. Your friends start to notice how you're playing. And you go home after a tournament. It's your best finish ever. And then mom's like, honey, I heard you did good out there today. And you're like, Mom, do you know how many strokes I left out there? I could have done so much better out there. Mom, do you know how many strokes I left out there? And yeah, it ain't no problem focusing on your game. Reading the books, doing all these little small things when you're playing your absolute best. But if it's easy to do everything it takes to win when things are going awesome, wouldn't that mean it's a little bit tougher and harder to do all these same things when things aren't going so awesome? It doesn't even have to be going bad. I coach junior players on a weekly basis and I hear this stuff. You could be playing the same for a while and get disheartened and stay disappointed. Why? Because you're not doing this work to shoot the same scores. You're doing this work to play better and lower your scores and change, right? Y'all with me? This is when you have a decision to make. And if y'all get nothing else out of what I'm trying to talk about tonight, of all this rambling out of tonight's training, okay, I want you to get this. Am I going to let the bad scoring define my potential in this game? Or am I going to trust the process of personal and player development and let that process take care of the scoring long term? What are some signs that you're trusting the scores and not the process? When you only look at your tournaments that you're playing in as a way to advance your golf career if you're doing well in them. You're more concerned with where you finish and if you place top 5 to qualify into the next larger junior event. Is this going to help my rankings or not? Is this going to give me more stars in my AJG rankings or not? Is this going to help my junior golf scoreboard rankings or not? And if I play good, then that tournament helped my career. But if I played bad, then that tournament hurt my career. And you care more about that than you do anything else. And guys, that is over 90% of you in the room tonight. How about this? How about when you make excuses about the golf course? When you blame others for where you are in your career. Oh, that college coach only follows his favorites, so I don't stand a chance at that school. Or my dad, he didn't get me to all the right tournaments this year. That's why I'm behind. You know what? My swing coach, he isn't as good as so-and-so's. No, listen, you cannot think like that and expect to have any sort of long-term success at this. You have to overcome that negative attitude as soon as it starts to come up, and you have to learn how to stink and win. Okay, Josh, that's what I want to do. I want to learn how to win. I want to learn how to succeed. Cool. Here's the first step in learning how to be successful. You have to quit buying into this thing that it's somebody else's fault for where you're at all the time. That you don't have the right swing coach, or that your high school coach isn't Mr. Perfect, or your parents didn't make all the perfect moves this summer, or that it's some other garbage that's entirely untrue. You have to learn to accept personal responsibility at all times for where you are in your career, and only at that point do you stand a chance to succeed. Trusting the scores and not the process. You can't have a winning junior or college career when you give all of your attention to things that are completely out of your control, like your scores. You can't control what you shoot. Whoa, wait a second, Josh. Okay, well, like I was with you until all that. Like I'm the golfer. I'm the one hitting the golf shots. I can control that. Let me do the golfing. What do you mean I can't control what I shoot? That's a great question. Here's what I mean. You can't control what you shoot. If you could control what you shot, when you play golf, you'd shoot a 55 every single time you teed it up, and this would be the most boring thing that we all did as a sport. Okay, then if I can't control that, then what should I do? What should I focus on? Guys, here's what you can control. Player development, getting mentally stronger every single time you play, which comes from learning from it all. Learning from the peaks and mountaintops, valleys and bad scores, and learning from everything and in between. When you're up and down, playing mental ping pong with where you think you're going to go in your game, it makes every decision harder than what it has to be when you're trusting the scores. You're letting your scores determine your attitude. You let bad shots bother you and own you during your rounds. Trusting the scores because they're good one day, they're great, everything's awesome, everything's peachy, and then they're terrible one week, and you finish playing, you walk past everybody in your life. I'm not good enough to play or to reach my goals. I'm not good enough to play D1. You don't acknowledge that anybody else exists, and you walk right up to your room, you close the door, and you're cut off from society. That is trusting the scores. Okay, so how do you know that you're trusting the process? When bad play doesn't change your work habits. When bad play doesn't change your attitude. There are two things, and only two things, that you have absolute and total control over in your life. Your actions and your attitude. Trusting the process. When you finally accept that failure is a part of the process in succeeding in junior golf. Okay, so how do I have a better attitude, Josh? I want to develop this. Here's what it's called, guys. Developing an attitude. Here's what it's really called. It's called developing a championship mindset. And here's how you do it. It's called personal growth from the inside out. And that comes from reading the right books. Listening to trainings like you're hearing tonight from Achievers Coaching System is going to help that, okay? And then positive association with people who have a championship mindset. I'm not talking about getting around other people and other players with just a good attitude. There are plenty of players that have a good attitude, but they don't have a championship mindset. And so now you go to practice every week. Here's how you develop this mindset, guys. You go to practice each week. You line up your tournament schedule. You line up your practice schedule. But you also block out 3 to 5 times per week. Maybe we're not doing so much COD. Maybe we're not doing so much, 2K. And then we learn to dedicate that time to personal growth. Or you spend time listening to an Achievers audio training like this. And then you take that new mindset into your practice that upcoming week. And you know what? You get a little bit fired up after you do that because it's been a while since you've had that kind of an attitude when you practice. And then it's on to the next tournament. And let's say you totally bomb it, 81 the first day, okay? Instead of pouting and thinking that your whole life is over, you journal and take notes on what went down at that tournament, the good and the bad. And you learn from it and you get better. And then you start planning for the next week. You want to learn how to practice on the course. You want to change up some things there. And then here again, 3 to 5 times a week, we're getting back into personal development, reading a book like The Dream Giver, which is a story about a character named Ordinary who chases a big dream in his life, and he learns how to overcome adversity at the absolute highest level. Guys, what I'm talking about tonight is a realistic approach to develop a championship mindset that is required to become a top performer in golf. And it's awesome. I love doing this and I love teaching this. Here's what my favorite thing is about you succeeding in golf. Whether y'all know it or not, the way that you approach your junior golf career is setting yourself up for how you're going to approach any career in the future. How cool is it that you get to learn timeless success principles in a game that you love that is going to help impact the rest of your life if you do this right? This is when knowing that is going to help you to embrace the process. And here's the number one sign that shows that you are capable of trusting the process: when you take ownership of personal development. When you get excited about reading these books, and when you get excited about taking notes and doing all these little things, you don't have to have me, you don't have to have another coach, you don't have to have mom and dad asking, okay, buddy, it's time to reflect after your round. No, you take ownership of personal development. You say this to yourself. You say, matter of fact, I'm going to grow and change so much for the better that 6 months from now, if you haven't seen me, I'm going to have to reintroduce myself because you're not even going to recognize me. Gone will be these excuses I've been making about crappy weather, so I'm not going to practice, or I didn't play good because the guys in my group. No, look, the days of me blaming others for not being where I want to be in this journey will be over. You no longer look at the scores as the most important things in your tournaments. Because when you walk by scores, here's what you're doing. When you trust the scores, you're walking by sight. You only believe in the things you can see. But when you trust the process, you're walking by faith, and you're believing in things that you cannot see. And you go from week to week with this brand new championship mindset. I'm telling y'all, this is how you can get better at this game. And you go day in and day out, and nobody else can see it on the outside, but you're getting mentally stronger on the inside. And yeah, other players who's always been better than you are still better than you are when you start this. But now you're doing something that they're not, and you're gaining ground on them from the inside out. And let me just tell you, when you start doing this, it's a matter of time before you catch up to those players and you blow past them. Well, how do you know that, Josh, if I'm still shooting the same scores when I'm doing all this? Here's why. Because personal growth is a process. And although you're not having breakthroughs in your scoring on the outside, you're having breakthroughs of who you're becoming on the inside. And here's a tip. The outside always lines up with the inside. When you take ownership of personal and player development, that's when you know that you're trusting the process. And you're going to develop this championship mindset about having faith in the process of simple actions of greatness, like journaling after your rounds, like having a better attitude, like reading the right books, affirmation cards, okay? And you listen to an achiever's audio here and there, and you repeat these things again and again over time. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to develop faith that miracles do happen if you trust the process and you keep churning the cream. I've enjoyed my time with you guys tonight. Take care. God bless. Enjoy this tournament this upcoming week. I'll be seeing y'all on the fairways and greens across this state in the upcoming year. Thanks a lot.